Hello and welcome to another professional development seminar on the DCAT-2, the Dynamic Complex Assessment Task, brought to you by the North American Clinical Research Consortium. I'm Dr. Len Matheson. Today's study focuses on the DCAT-2 O-Net work sample test using the Employability Rating Scale to help develop reasonable accommodations. Our case study today is Joanna Kim, a 32-year-old acute care nurse with 10 years of experience in her job, who experienced a fall injury at work from which she appeared to have recovered. After receiving rehabilitation for her musculoskeletal injuries, she was unsuccessful in returning to work due to unanticipated cognitive problems. She just couldn't keep up. She's now discouraged and anxious about her career. Is she going to lose her career? Can we help her? In other lessons, we've explored the evaluation record that occupational therapist Susan Jones completed on Joanna's performance in the work sample test number 1. Today we're going to go back and take a look at the employability rating scale that Susan Jones used as part of that evaluation. Susan rated Joanna at the competitive level for 6 of the 10 constructs that she evaluated: wrist finger speed, finger dexterity, manual dexterity, oral comprehension, perceptual speed, and safety. She rated Joanna at the self-managed level in terms of visualization, problem sensitivity, and planning and organization. Joanna's weakest area had to do with problem correction. Susan rated Joanna at the coach level for problem correction. The ERS has 5 levels, ranging from competitive down to not employable. For each level, there's a clear definition that takes a look at the degree of accommodation the person requires to be safe and dependable at work. Most importantly, there are 3 accommodated employment levels, from self-managed to coached to active supervision. Across these 3, we take a look at productivity and whether or not it's comparable to similarly situated workers. And so what is similarly situated? It's a comparison the employer must make that is fair. The employer cannot impose unfair expectations on someone with a disability. The basic concept coming out of the Americans with Disabilities Act amendments of 2008, ADAAA, ensures a fair productivity evaluation for returning workers with disabilities by considering the productivity of similarly situated employees. The ADAAA requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations to qualified employees with disabilities as they return to work. Reasonable accommodations include modified work schedules, assisted devices, or adjusted job duties to enable a person with a disability to perform the essential job functions. When a worker with a disability returns from leave or experiences a change in their disability, the ADAAA prevents employers from solely comparing them to their pre-disability performance. And this is a key issue that your clients will be concerned about. It used to be that the employer could say, "We don't want her back unless she's 100%. That's no longer acceptable. The ADAAA requires a consultation, which is best provided by the occupational therapist who has evaluated the client in their clinic in terms of whether reasonable accommodations can allow the person to return to work safely and dependably. And this requires that employers evaluate the returning worker's productivity in comparison to co-workers who share similar job duties, experience levels, and working conditions. And that experience levels issue is really important. If you have a client who hasn't been working for several months, they're just out of shape, or if they're going into an accommodated job that they're not really familiar with, their productivity must not be compared to other people who've been doing that work all along. They need to have an opportunity to get back up to speed. And so what are the key points? Well, the focus in the ADAAA is whether the worker can perform the essential job functions with or without accommodations. For more information on this, you can refer to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC website for detailed guidance on the ADAAA and reasonable accommodations at www.eeoc.gov. Productivity is evaluated based on comparison to workers with similar job duties, experience, and working conditions. The ADAAA does not guarantee the same level of productivity as before the disability, but ensures a fair chance based on current abilities. And so now let's take a closer look at the Employability Rating Scale. At the top level, if your opinion is that the person can go back to competitive employment without limitations, this means that they can be compared to workers performing similar work and the worker does not require accommodation to safely and dependably complete the work activities. Their productivity is comparable to similarly situated workers. The highest level of reasonable accommodation is self-managed. With self-managed accommodation, the worker is able to safely and dependably complete the work activities, and their productivity is comparable to similarly situated workers. Accommodations such as workstations, tools, and equipment enable independent and dependable work performance without ongoing support from supervisors or coworkers. The next level of reasonable accommodation is coached, in which limited physical and/or verbal guidance is required for the worker to safely and dependably complete their work activities. And the person continues to have productivity that is comparable to similarly situated workers. In this case, the worker performs the required tasks on a safe and dependable basis with only cueing and guidance without additional assistance from supervisory personnel or coworkers. And now the next level of reasonable accommodations is called active supervision, in which ongoing physical and/or verbal intervention is required for the worker to safely and dependably complete the work activities. In this case now, productivity is not comparable to similarly situated workers. This person requires active assistance from a supervisor or coworker to complete their work tasks on a safe and dependable basis. And then, of course, the person may be not employable, and often is when they first come into the clinic. And this means that even with accommodations, including ongoing physical and/or verbal intervention, the worker is unable to safely and dependably complete the work activities, and they have no safe and dependable productivity. And this means that the person is not safe and dependable, even with changes in their schedule, the workplace, their workstation, tools and equipment, and/or interpersonal assistance that are not normally provided to workers without disabilities. And so for the first 5 constructs that are evaluated at this level by the DCAT-2 work sample test number 1, Joanna did not require any accommodations to manage this level of challenge. She was also rated by Susan at the competitive level in terms of safety. Joanna made no safety rule breaks. Joanna's ratings by Susan at the self-managed accommodation level also included notations. For visualization, Joanna used the labeled photo to translate images from the photo to aid in assembly. For problem sensitivity while she was assembling the doll chair, she struggled with comparison to the model. And for planning and organization, Susan rated Joanna at the self-managed level because she demonstrated haphazard trial and error. Susan's judgment on Joanna's performance in terms of problem correction was at the coach level because she needed encouragement from Susan, and she accepted the encouragement to use the work aids to figure out what problems she was having and correcting them. And then finally, Joanna's overall performance guides us in terms of what to do next. She required 43 seconds to complete parts placement, which placed her at the 80th percentile, and 420 seconds to complete assembly, which placed her at the 10th percentile. She had 0 unidentified errors in both parts placement and assembly. She had 1 IRB, an instructional rule break, in terms of parts placement, but none with assembly. And she made no safety rule breaks. Susan's weighted score of Joanna across all 10 constructs resulted in a total score of 35. Since Susan was able to evaluate Joanna on all 10 constructs in the work sample test, the score of 35 is divided by 10 to give us an average rating of 3.5. And this takes us back to a global rating in which the average score provides guidance in terms of the accommodated employment level. A 3.5 score places Joanna at the self-managed level. Of course, she was rated at the coach level for problem correction, which will be an early focus of Susan's work with Joanna. And so thank you for participating in this lesson. We have future lessons on the Employability Rating Scale in its use to guide minimum necessary intervention and how it's foundational for the use of the O-Net behaviorally anchored ratings. We also have a future lesson on how the Employability Rating Scale is used in situational assessments. So drop us a note for further information at info@mathesondevelopment.com. Take care now.